Hey guys, welcome in. I lost $400,000 trading a stock this week. So today I'm going to analyze that trade. One, for accountability, but then also because I feel like you all might
Hey
be
guys,
able
welcome
to
in.
learn from it. I lost $400,000 trading a stock this week. So today I'm going to analyze that trade. One, for accountability, but then also because I feel like you all might
Hey
be
guys,
able
welcome
to
in.
learn. All right. So hopefully you guys can hear me. Will you let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay? I turned my audio off so that you don't hear an echo. I know, right? Core Love's like, wow, I know. Someone's like, how did I get here? So can you guys hear me now? I do trade stock options. I trade stocks and options. Okay, great. I'm also going to really quick share this link. Perfect. Thank you, Evie. I'm going to share this link real quick with my email list. That way they'll know we're live too. All right. Oop, it's doing like this thumbnail thing, which is interesting. All right. You know what? We're just gonna go. Um, Using this. And welcome in everybody. We're about to talk through this 400K loss I had last week. Oh, goodness. Just um press the link. All right. All right, here we go. Hopefully they'll get this and be able to join on with us too if they want to. All right, that is done. So here we go. Hey, everybody. All right. Um, Noni says, how do I get on the email list? You know what? In some of the other links, there is like we have a link to join, like to get our freebies. When you get our freebies, you also get on our email list. And we actually send like a weekly newsletter about the market. So it's a really beneficial list. But here we go. Okay, so yes, I lost $400,000 this week on a trade, and today I'm actually going to walk us through how that happened. I'm running this through Zoom, so you guys just keep talking to me to tell me like if you're seeing things and what's happening, but I'm going to be sharing my screen in a second and we'll actually walk through it. So there's three questions that I like to ask myself when I'm analyzing like what went wrong. And let me tell you those three questions because that's what we're going to go through today. So get my notes. Oh, and you might see too, I'm wearing my Teach for America shirt. Somebody may want to know, like, were you in Teach for America? So I actually worked for Teach for America for 3.5 years, and it's one of the places where I built my love for education. And one of our big things at the time was education equality. And I was in the part of the program where we taught teachers. We did these summer institutes. I was over the operations, but you can't be around institutes where you're teaching teachers and not learn how to teach. So that's just a big part of my journey. And I always shout out to Teach for America because they're doing good work in the world. So, okay, here are the three questions that I like to ask myself and that we're going to walk through. And I'm telling you guys this, and I'm telling you as someone teaching, but actually right now, like I'm doing this in real time for myself of like, okay, Terry, what did you do wrong to lose on this trade? And then like lose such a significant amount. But for me, it's 400K. For you, it might be 40K or 4,000, right? Like for everybody, your portfolio, like different amounts of money matter just as much. So hopefully you can learn from me. Don't just think about, oh man, those numbers are so big. Mm-mm. No, just learn. So here are the questions. One, what was the trade? And I'm going to try to be as objective as possible. Like, this is not the time where you start beating yourself up of like, oh, well, you could have done this or you should have done that, or man, if you had just done. No, this is where you're being just really objective. Like, what actually was happening at the time? What, like, what was going through my mind? Was I feeling? So we're going to do that together. Then the second question I asked myself, like after I've just objectively said what, what happened or what was the trade, then I'm going to go through and say, okay, now that we know what the trade was, what went wrong? So, and sometimes it's not even what went wrong. Sometimes it's just like, well, what happened? So we'll look at that. Like, okay, from the time that I did the trade, what happened after that? And then the third question that I like to ask myself is, how could you have made money on this? Like, how could you have done this and it actually have been profitable? Because as you all know, there are many times where, like, if you had just done one tweak or if there had just been something a little different, then it could have actually worked. So we're going to look at that. Like, okay, we know what happened. Now, what could I have done? And then that's where my personal learning will come from because now that I've had the lesson, took the loss, all right, dang, that sucked. Now it's like, okay, well, now let's learn from this and we'll look at what I could have done. So you guys on the same page with me? And YouTube, y'all still there? All right, y'all still with me? Tell me in the chat, ready, if you're ready, and then we'll move forward. And there's a little bit of a delay, so hopefully I can see you guys. But hopefully you're still there with me. All right. Okay, good. Cheryl said yes. Tata said yes. Yes, we're still here. Good. You're ready. Perfect. Okay, guys. So, and y'all, for my prayer warriors in the house, y'all know like I'm a big money girl. Also, just whisper a prayer because this is very vulnerable to share when you have a loss. So, here we go. Let's do the work. So I'm going to share my screen. And the first thing we have to tackle is, so what actually happened? What was the stock? What was the trade? So here we go. So let me come over first. I'm walking you guys first through it in Trading View. So it was actually on Netflix. And let me just walk you through what happened. So I traded Netflix last week as well, right before earnings, and I actually made money on the trade. I was selling puts. So selling puts means that you make money if it goes up, or you're willing to actually buy the stock at a certain price. So in the beginning of the week here, let me just show you. I'm going to show you where we were at the beginning of that week. So when I actually, and maybe it was a couple weeks ago, where was I? Because this trade happened Tuesday. So it actually happened like my trade that I took this week was this day, Tuesday. And last week's trade was over here, like right before earnings. And earnings was on the 17th. So this day here. Yep. So, okay. So I traded, just walking you guys through what I did. So last week I had puts on Netflix and I was trading it. And I always tell you all, don't trade before earnings because you just never know what's going to happen. So I sold Netflix, sold puts, meaning that I thought it would go up. And this day, the day right before earnings, I actually sold out of the position because I wanted to make sure that like if something crazy happened during earnings, I wasn't still holding the position. So I sold out of the position and I was so excited and proud of myself because sure enough, Netflix earnings came out the next day. They beat on earnings, but the stock price fell. And so I was so proud of myself. I was like, whoo, I got out of that. And I made like maybe 20 to 40K on that trade. Like in relative numbers, right? I just told you I lost 400K. So in relative numbers, like 20 to 40 wasn't that big. So I was like, okay, but I made a little something and then I avoided this big drop. So then come into this week, and I'm seeing that it's still going down. So it's coming down, and I'm now looking at charts because I'm a technical analysis trader. So I'm looking at charts and I'm seeing over here that like it's come down about $100. And then if I come over this way, like there was like a little bit of a buyer's level here, not strong. So when we talk about what happened and like what went wrong and how I could have made money. This is probably one of those what went wrong, but just walking through the trade. So it's so I'm seeing that like it's come down a lot from its highs. And I look at the chart, but at the same time, like I'm kind of like, well, it's just this is Netflix. Netflix goes up all the time and it's come down a lot. So this is a good time to enter. Plus, like it beat on earnings. So these are all like I'm telling y'all the things that were going through my head. It beat on earnings, and so these are people just selling, they're overthinking it. So it's time for me to get back into this trade. And I'm also feeling at this time because another thing is like what in the what did you do? It's also what are you feeling? So in this time, if I'm honest, the things I'm feeling at this time are like, oh, I haven't been trading as much as I should have been, so I need to get into a stock. This is a good one. It usually moves a lot. So these are kind of the rationale things that were going through my head. Now, as I mentioned, if you look over, well, no, we're gonna do that in a second. We're gonna look at the what really happened. But the things that I was feeling was it's come down a lot and it usually moves a lot. So let me get in while it's come down because I think people have overdone it after the earnings and it'll go back up. Okay. So I get into it here on Tuesday. And at the time that I get into it, I, so what I'm not sure of on timing, because like on this chart, it doesn't look like it came down as much as like to where it was when I bought this. So I'm a little, maybe I bought it on Wednesday. That's like a super, ooh. So I think actually I might have bought this on Wednesday. So now as I'm reanalyzing it, I'm trying not to, let me just be objective. What happened? So I think I actually must have bought this on Wednesday because I bought it when the stock was at 178. And what I did is I bought options contracts. So I bought 500 contracts. And I know y'all are like, wait, what? You just gotta put it out. What did you do? I bought 500 contracts and I bought them at 1185. So it must have been Wednesday that I bought this. In my head, I'm like, no, I bought it. I gave myself a whole bunch of time. And my strike, I mean, my expiration was for this week, for Friday. Mm. Looking back at this, I'm like, what were you thinking? But let me let me not judge myself. Okay, so yeah, this must be what I did. So, sometimes you're making a trade and you don't really think through all these things. It's after the fact that you're like, girl, what were you doing? All right, so again, this is what happened. I bought, yes, it must have been Wednesday because the stock was at 178. Let me zoom in on this for y'all. Okay. Yeah, it must have been here. Oh, goodness. Okay. So, Wednesday, I bought 500 contracts of Netflix expiring that Friday at 11.85. Goodness. And 500 of them now, what the price was, the premium. I paid $7.22. So now let's look at an options chain for those that are not familiar with options chains. So basically, this is what's happening here. And this is gonna look a little fuzzy, but so at the time, the stock was down here at 11.78, and I remember wanting to buy, and this is hard to read, y'all, I know, but just follow along with me, especially if you're not an options trader. Or if you are an options trader, you should be able to see. I'm kind of towards the middle of the screen where this 1182.5. Now, these numbers are not the same as last week's numbers because the option chain for last week has disappeared. So this is like the options chain for this week on Netflix. But I remember feeling like the options for the next week, the farther away options, were too expensive. I couldn't afford them. So I was like, well, let me just buy these because they're cheaper and I really think that Netflix is going to move, being objective. However, if we were to skip to the section of what happened, girl, what are you thinking? Okay, but anyway, coming back to the objective, I thought, well, the average true range of Netflix is, $25 a day, $40 a day. It's definitely going to have like this little snapback. It's been a few days since earnings. Earnings fell. It's going to snap right back. Anyway, so I'm cracking myself up on this trade. But anyway, so at the time it was 11.78, and then I first wanted to buy options contracts at 11.82 because that day like it had fallen down to 11.78, but it was starting to come back positive, so I was like, oh, surely it's about to turn around. So I'll go a little out of the money because they're a little less expensive. Again, in a second, when we analyze this little less expensive thing definitely cost me a lot this time. Um, like they're a little less expensive, but I remember this also happening. I wanted to put in a my price for this 1182.5 strike price. I wanted to put in, I remember it being like $6 when I first wanted to buy it, but then the price started changing. And I remember feeling like, oh no, I'm not going to get my price. Like the premium started going up. So then I moved out. I moved up a strike price to 11.85 because these were cheaper. So I said, well, if it moves $25 a day, like surely like this $2.50 difference in strike price is not going to matter. So then I said, well, these up here are a little cheaper. So let me go up to another strike price. It's 11.85. So then I bought here at 11.85, and the contracts eventually got filled at $7.22. Now, if somebody is wondering, so how much did that cost you? Here's my little calculator. Hope you guys can still see it. So each of my contracts, um, at a premium of $7.22 meant that I paid $722 per contract. And then I bought 500 of them because I was just so confident that Netflix is about to turn around. Now, putting on my Terry the coach hat, coaching myself, why? What gave me this confidence that Netflix was about to turn around? I showed y'all the chart a second ago. It really wasn't showing this on the chart. I think I just kind of had this idea that, oh, Netflix is a good company and it's going to turn. So we don't know where this confidence came from. But taking the hat back off, I felt in this moment when I took this trade, oh, it's going to turn around and clearly it's going to go back up to 1200. This was okay, this was the math. Like I can remember now, the math. It oh, goodness, so silly. So now 1185. So if I'm at 1185 strike price, in my head I'm thinking Netflix is going to end the week at 1200. So my like I'll be in the money $15. So if I pay $7.22 for this premium, I'm still going to double my money because at the end of the week, it's going to be at 1200, right? So this was the thought pattern in my head. So the thought wasn't bad. Like I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to double my money. I think the question I have in the next portion when we look at what happened is what was giving me this confidence? Like what was I basing it on? Because yes, it could have easily done that. Netflix could easily have turned around, went to 1200. I would have had a completely different tune today because, oh, I just doubled my money on this trade. But it has to be based on something. Like that confidence has to be based on some kind of data. And for me, my data and my confidence comes from technical analysis. It comes from reading a chart. So, where in the chart did it say that this is about to turn around? So, that's what I would need to look for myself. But anyway, so how much did I pay for this? $722 and then times 500 contracts. So I paid $361,000 for this trade. Yeah, for those who can't see, I don't know how to make this thing bigger. But, and the funny thing is, I was so confident in this, y'all. I remember originally wanting to buy 1,000 contracts, but it wasn't letting me do it. Like, I actually had to talk to my broker to do this trade because it's a big trade. And and they were like, are you sure you want to do 1,000? And I was like, yes, I want to do 1,000. The thought in my head was, I'm not about to lose. So in my head, the thought was, yes, I want to buy 1,000 contracts so that every time this thing moves a penny, I make $1,000. And every time it moves a dollar, I make $100,000. And I'm thinking, okay, well, Netflix is about to go to 1,200. I'm gonna make 15, like it's gonna go up at least $15. That is 15 times 100,000. That's $1.5 million on this trade. Minus what I paid for it. So minus the 700. So I'm about to make at least 700,000 on this trade. Right? This was the thinking in my head. Again, it's like, well, what was that based on? Like what? Like you just decided that you were going to buy 1,000 contracts, but based on what? I didn't really have like a risk management plan or like it literally was all based on just what I thought I could make, but I don't think I had like an actual plan. And you all in trade and travel, y'all know that that's not what I teach myself. So I just threw the plan out the window on this trade and was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy and thank and I can't even put God in this. This was all me. This was a bad mistake. But I'm glad that there was a little bit of pushback on the 1,000 because then I was like, okay, fine, I'll do 500. which is good because otherwise I would have lost, what's this times two? Yeah, I would have lost $722,000 on this trade, which I mean, I know some of you guys would be like, are you serious right now? What kind of numbers are these? This is not in my portfolio. This wouldn't have crashed my portfolio, but it would have definitely crashed my ego. And sometimes like ego is more important as a trader than even the amount of money in your account. Like I feel like this would have been one of those like, oh, oh. The 300K is still feeling like that. It's feeling like, girl, you know better than that. How did you get here? What? The 700K I think would have been like a, what is going on with my life? Ugh. Kind of like just, that pain. I don't know if any of you guys have had a trade that it just completely just takes the wind out of you and a little bit of just like you don't even know how to respond. Yeah. That would have been the 700K. This 300K, I'm feeling like I can make a plan. I'm feeling like that was stupid, Terry. That was stupid. But I'm also feeling like, okay, I just need to kind of come back and regroup. So let's go to step number two. You guys with me still? Let me actually see from you all too if anybody has been in this situation. Now that we've done the analysis of what happened, have any of you guys been there? Like on a trade? Like, tell me in the comments. Let me just see. Right. Hatcher's like, you didn't use the TNT method. I didn't. I didn't even use my own trade and travel method. This was just, oh, oh gosh, just so silly. Oh my goodness. But anyway, that's okay. Whew, we're gonna dust ourselves off. Anybody else who's had a loss that you feel like, what was I thinking? You are not alone. Oh, you are not alone. This happens even to the best of us. And even on the best, here's another thing, it happens even on the best stocks. Like Netflix is a great company, but I still had a loss, right? And that's happened to me in the past. Like I remember I've lost on Meta, I've lost on Apple, um, great companies, but I didn't quite execute it correctly. All right, so let's keep going. If he says, yes, I have been there. Ugh, I get it. And you guys, please, if you're on YouTube, please like this for me so that more people can see it. Because I think this would be helpful for some folks. All right. So now let's talk about what actually happened the rest of the week and look at kind of spots that went wrong. So let me share my screen again. And so let's just look at this. And then at the end, the last question we're going to look at, well, how could I have done this differently? And I think that's where the most of our learning is going to be like, okay, next time we're doing this different. Okay, so what happened the rest of the week in this stock? Okay, so, oh, geez, I still can't believe I did this on Wednesday. And another thing that I usually think about when I'm thinking about like what happened, like where was my mind? What was I going through? So these first couple of days, like I was watching the news, the stock market news, like CNBC, but I wasn't really in it. In the daytime, I was babysitting my nieces. So I didn't even have any time to like look at the market in the mornings while this trade is going. And then in the afternoons, I'm working on a book. So I have some deadlines for the book, and we're doing this big booth at InvestFest. And so my mind's not really in it on this trade, is what I'm trying to say. And that's another thing that I need to pay attention to. Like, where was my mind during this? Like, was I really engaged in kind of making sure that this was going well, or was I like somewhere else completely? And I'll tell you the truth, I think this week I was kind of somewhere else completely. I was hoping that I could just drop this, go away, do whatever else I wanted to do, and then come back and I'd have money in my account, which has happened and can happen, but at, like I feel like especially when you have this much on the line, you gotta have to pay attention. Like you can't just not look at it. Like you got to actively manage it. Not that I needed to be staring at the computer, but so the first day after this, let's look at this on a 15 minute. So this is a daily. And remember, we made this trade over here on Wednesday. Silly. Like one of the things that went wrong is I did this with the expiration date that was too soon. I am probably 90% confident that if I had not been so cheap and bought a expiration even a week later, watch next week this thing be above 1185. So one thing that I definitely did wrong was I did an expiration that was too short. Like I didn't even give myself a chance to be right. And next week, I guarantee you, next week, when this thing goes above 1185 and when it hits 1200, I will be extremely upset because I was right in my thinking, but wrong in my timing. Right? So, hey, it is. It is what it is as traders. Sometimes we make mistakes. So that's one thing that didn't go well. As you can see, this next day, let me make this a little bit bigger and I'll do 15-minute candles so you can kind of see. Okay. So this is Tuesday. This is Wednesday. And I got into the trade, I believe it was in the morning. So probably, I remember it being around 178. It's probably around here. So we're in the morning on Wednesday. I put in this trade and the stock is right here at 178. So then it stays in this range the rest of the day. So I'm still feeling confident in my trade. Like, okay, well, tomorrow will be this turnaround day. Then the next day, and mind you, it's losing theta each day because expiration is over here on Friday. So the next day, it starts coming down. I don't exit the trade. Now it's down to 165. And you know what? Let me see if inside of TradeStation, which is my trading platform, uh, you can click on a strike and then see the chart of where the price has been. So you can like look back and see. I don't think it has that feature here in Trading View. It might, but we'll go back because here was my strike price, this 1185. Okay. It's not quite showing me what I want to show you, but what I wanted to show you was what was happening to the actual premium as the chart was moving. So here, remember my strike price is 1185 and I'm in it. My premium is $7.22. This next day, the stock starts falling. And now my premium is down. Now it's only worth maybe about, I want to say, maybe about $2.50. So I've already lost a significant amount of the value. One, I've lost it because of theta. It's about to expire on Friday, and this is now Thursday. And then also, I've lost it because the stock price has come down. So at this point, I've already lost probably 200,000, 250,000 of the value, right? Because my premium is down $5. I have 500 contracts, so that means I've already lost $250,000 just the morning of the next day. But your girl is still dumbly confident. Oh, but this is Netflix. It goes down and it turns back around. And then, sure enough, because see, here's the thing. In this next section, when I think about what I could have done differently to make money on this, at this point, one of the things I could have done was get out of the trade. Yes, I've lost 250,000, but there still was $2.50 a premium per contract. I still would have had some left. Like I wouldn't have lost the whole 400K. Well, it's really 361,000. I wouldn't have lost the whole $361,000 if I had gotten out when there was still some premium. But no, I wait. And so the rest of that day, it actually starts going up and we end about the same price that I bought it for on Wednesday. So now the premium is about the same. And I remember looking and I was only down like 1.7% because we're about even, right? Again, this is another place where I could have sold and said, you know what? This trade isn't quite working out the way I wanted it to. Let me take a small loss. Let me take, I think at this point I was down, it probably would have been like $30,000. Let me go ahead and take that $30,000 loss and keep it moving. Be ready for the next trade. Figure this out, rework this. But no, I didn't do that. I said, well, it's moving in my favor. So I'm going so I'm going to keep it because tomorrow is the day. Again, don't forget, at this point, I'm losing money because of time. So not only am I at the pleasure of the market, if I'm now kind of like it has to move, right? Because I have no more theta giving me extra premium in this trade. So now it has to move. So I'm now, but I still have not sold it. So it comes back up and I'm almost back to even. And I'm like, oh, this is the moment. Now I have to give myself credit and kind of think through, well, what would make me feel like why did I keep it here? Mentally, like what was going on with me here? Well, earlier this year, I was in Nvidia and this was at the time where Nvidia had come down to $80. And here I'll let you see me for a second. So earlier this year, I was in Nvidia, and this is at the time where Nvidia had come down and it was on its way back up. And I had an option at 136. But at this time, like it had come way down and was taking its sweet time to get back up. And that Thursday, I had this same thought of because it was now my option was at like 130. I think it was 136, and it had just passed like 121 or something. Like it wasn't close to 136. And I'm thinking, well, let me keep my premium. And there's a little bit of premium here. Let me keep it and I'll just take the loss. So I do that. And then sure enough, that Friday, NVIDIA runs, it roars, and it passes, like it comes back up to my like where I bought the stock, like the premium that I had bought the option contract. And I remember feeling in that moment like, man, I shouldn't have sold. So if I'm thinking through like how I was really feeling in this moment, I think the reason why I didn't cut my losses on this one was I just felt like I'm not going to have another Nvidia thing happen to me. Like, let me just ride this out till Friday. And in case Netflix does have some big move on Friday and I'm not going to miss it again. So emotionally, that's what's going on. But if you all are trade and travel members, you know that not I have yet to talk about what the chart said. And that's the big problem here. Like this whole thing was quite emotional and not data driven. So, and I will say I actually did look at the chart a little bit, so we can go look back at it again. But what I would like to see the next time that I do this is like I really want this whole thing to be based on what did the chart say. Right? Like if I could come here and tell you all the reason why this didn't work out is I did all the steps right. The chart said this. This is exactly what, my trading plan says to do. This is what trade and travel method is, and I did it and it didn't work. If I can come and tell you all that, then that's cool. But if all of the things I'm saying are, well, the last time and my emotions and I thought it was, and well, this is a healthy a company and I just think Netflix is good, then that ain't gonna work. Mm-mm. No, because if you guys came and talked to me and that was what you told me, then I would be like, well, what did the chart say? And I can't tell you all what the chart said. And that's not right. That's not good. So okay, let's go back to what happened. Whew, Jesus, Lord Jesus, be with me. Goodness. Oh, Lord Jesus. I think God be like, this ain't me, girl. You did this to yourself. Mm, He right. Yep, he right. Okay. So, all right, here we go. So then Friday comes, and I'm sorry I can't blow this up. Let me see if I can at least. Oof. So then Friday comes. And here's the thing. I was right. Like, it's starting now to go positive, and it passes my 185. At this point, the options contract is now, excuse me, it's only worth like $4 and it might even been less than that, like maybe three. I put in I put in a contract to sell. So I said, okay, I want to close out this contract. I want to sell. Do you know what I put my limit as? I put the limit in as $8. Now, now Teri, talking to myself, baby girl, we got back to your strike. You are now in the money. But the premium is lower now because it's about to expire. It's about maybe $4. Maybe. I think it could have been less than that. But let's just say it was $4. So I'm still $3 short. But we're finally like getting to where like your strike price. But you put in an option to sell at 8. Why? Okay, so the rationale of what I was thinking here was once again, I've got in my head, Netflix is gonna roar. It's going to 1200. So let me, like, I'm not selling here. Like, finally, I'm right. Quick side note, quick, like, coach's bubble. How many of you all like it finally goes in the direction that you want it to, but instead of selling, you now get greedy? Because that's literally what I just did. It finally starts going in my direction in a way that I could have gotten out without without as much pain. But now I'm like, well, that's all right. I'm gonna just be greedy here and get out. Like I just want to still make some money. So I'm gonna put the limit on this to be $8. So silly. Like what I should have done, kind of going a little into step number three, it would have been better for me to go ahead, count this trade as a loss. Like, you know what? This trade did not pan out quite the way you thought it was. Let's get out here. We're almost to the end of our expiration. Let's get out here and at least save some of our money. Girl, pat yourself on the back. You were right. You got in when it was 178 and now it's 185. Um you did good. Netflix did turn around. Get out. But no, I in my mind was like it's still going to go up more. Let me be a little greedy here. And clearly, what ended up happening was the rest of the day, it went sideways in this range. It did not pass 185. So then I'm also calling my broker. So this is another thing that's happening now at this point in the trade. I'm also calling my broker and trying to think through like, well, how many can I afford if I get assigned? Because the other thing that happens here is if I have this call at 185, I mean at 1185, and let's say Netflix goes to 1185 and 50 cents. Well, now I've got to buy 500 times 100, which is 50,000 shares of Netflix. And that's a lot of money, right? 50,000 shares times 1,180 dollars is a lot. So now I'm like, okay, well, how much can my account actually afford to buy? So all of these things are happening um, as this trade plays out. So and the truth is like what will usually happen at a broker is if you get into a place like this where you're about to be assigned, they'll just sell the contracts for you and you just end up taking a loss. Right? In my head, I'm like, but I want Netflix. I'm still thinking like this is a good company. I want this company. So now I'm trying to figure out how to move money into the account to be able to afford more shares if I get assigned. All of this is silly. All of this is silly. So let's go into step number three of now that we've seen everything, we saw what happened. What could I have done differently in this trade? What could I have done differently in this trade? And I'm processing this at the same time that I'm sharing it with you all. So if you hear me taking pauses, like it didn't die. I'm just like really trying to think. So I think one big thing that I could have done differently was I'm more of a swing trader now in terms of the capacity that I have. Like I told you, I was babysitting my nieces and working on these deadlines for the book. I could have given myself more time for this to work in my favor. Cause I told you guys I did look at the chart a little bit. Let me show you this on a daily basis. So like there's not the formations that I'm looking at, there's not a clear like this one maybe. Like if we're just thinking like the basics of charting, like support and resistance, like maybe someone could have said like, well, price was here and then it kept going higher. Let me give you guys a little bit more of the chart. So like there was something going on in this area, right? Price came up, touched this area a couple times, and then kept going up. So I could have said, and here, let me make this line more clear for you. Instead of dotted, and let's change the color. It's like a purple. So like at Trade and Travel, we have about four formations that we look for, but in this one, like let's just say that we were just doing kind of the basics of like, where does the stock keep falling and then seem to make like a new rally? This is the area here. Price comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down. So this area seems to be some kind of support, right? Like every time it comes down to this level, the stock price is supporting it, which means that means lots of banks are starting to buy at this level because they're the only ones who can give big enough trades and big enough buy orders to really support a stock. So around this 1172 to 1185 area, there's definitely some support. Now, I don't see my personal trade and travel formations. So this is where I made a mistake, like I went wrong. But there is something here. Now, on this Thursday, this candle broke way through that support. So now as a technical analysis trader, we would say like, well, there's a chance that it'll come down here, right? Like now if Netflix doesn't snap out of it, maybe it'll come here. So technically this was an okay trade, but it wasn't super technically sound, right? Because this would have been an area, and when I made the trade here on Wednesday, like I could have said, like, you know what? This is a support area. I think it's gonna turn around, and it could. But I wish I had given myself more time to figure out if I was right versus having that expiration on Friday and getting in on Wednesday. Okay. Another thing that could have gone well is if we zoom into this, like let me just zoom in. These are green candle days, but if my strike is up here at 1185, there was one day where it came and passed my strike. I could have gotten out and taken a smaller loss instead of just letting this thing go all the way to expiration. And I think part of that was a little bit of my pride, a little bit of greed, a little bit of Delulu, right? We're all in this like Delulu world, but in trading, you can't be Delulu. Like, I just think, I declare Netflix will be $1,200 by Friday. No, baby, you can't do that. You can't do that in trading. That will not work. You need to have like a because this chart said this, I have a 75% chance that this is gonna go right. Right? Another thing that I could have done differently, and I'm also going to talk about like how could I've actually made some money here. Another thing I could have done differently was less contracts. Like okay, you want to take a risk. This was basically like I'm just kind of doing a speculative play. And one thing I will say, like in my favor, another thing that had me thinking this one could work out was every other stock in my watch list, and this is why I pulled this up to just show you all my watch list. Um, Here it is. So like at the time when I was making this trade this week, it doesn't look like it now, but it seemed like all the other tech stocks did well this week. They were all green. The only one in my watch list that was red at the time was Netflix. So I also was feeling like, well, if everything else is green, surely Netflix would become green. Um, Another thing I could have done though is just go invest in one of the other ones that were green. Like, why did I feel like in my family, they'd be like, "You were Captain Save-A-Ho." Like I was trying to find the one stock that was not working. Which in the past, like you have to kind of think through, well, why did I feel like that would work this time? In the past, that has worked. When all the other tech stocks are green and there's one that's not, investing in that one, usually it'll go with the other things that trade like it. So it'll turn green too. Good thought. But the stocks I did make money on this week, I made money on Palantir, I made money on CrowdStrike, I made money even on TTD, which it's been lagging lately. But I could have just one thing I could have done differently was instead of trying to like go for this one stock that's in the red, I could have spent my effort and energy this week on some of the ones that have been green and doing well. Because even going into this, when we look at the chart, even going into this week, Netflix has been falling all month. It's been falling since the beginning of July, which, like I said, if we had like a really good formation supporting this, like so, like that there's going to be a turnaround here, would have been a great trade. But if we're looking at the current trend is down. And of all the stocks in the universe I could have chose, I didn't have to choose this one, right? I actually had a loss as well this week on Chipotle. Chipotle had earnings and it fell, and I had the same kind of thought. Of all the companies that you could have invested in, you chose Chipotle, which again, I had kind of one of those fairy tale, well, Chipotle is gonna have earnings and it's gonna like zoom through. I gotta get out of this fairy tale Delulu land with with trading and just go to the chart. The chart says that I'll show you what happened to Chipotle. You see this big old drop after earnings? Um, and it had been coming up, but if you look at the chart over time, let me you guys see this? Like Chipotle has been dropping since 2025, like since the end of last year. So of all the companies that I wanted to trade, and then it's even been dropping since the beginning of July. Why this one? And I hope this is helpful for somebody else. When you're thinking about like choosing, choose the good ones. Choose the ones who've been steadily going up, even in the last like month. Take a second to look at what you're trading. You don't have to like pick the underdog in stocks. Pick the winning horse. Pick the one that's been like going and doing well. Just go with it. So, talking to myself, but also hopefully encouraging you. Check your stock. You don't got to do the one that's failing. So, all right. And I know like as traders, this is what we're taught, right? Like we're taught like this one actually has a formation that's decent now after the fact. Like there's a formation here that's like, okay, well, this is a buyer's level. It fell into a buyer's level. This would be a great time to take the trade. But up here, when I was thinking about taking the trade, Girl, please. There's a little bit, sure, but it's been going down all week. I mean, all month. Really, of all the ones? So anyway, continuing. Um, I'm like, I hope you all are getting entertained by my mistake. I sure am. I'm enjoying myself. But that would have been one thing. Let me go back to my Netflix. Another way I could have made money is I should have been more defensive. Like if you're trading, you can also play defense. Like you don't have to just accept defeat. So there was a time, let me show you this. Okay. So there was a time after my trade. So I made the trade here on this Wednesday, this big red candle down, like this medium-sized red candle, I guess, compared to this one. It went down to 166 and then the next day ended at 185. So this could have been technically a different story if I had played defense. Because what I potentially could have said is like, you know what? I made this bad trade. I'm gonna either, you could either get out of it and then change the direction of that same trade, or I could have made another trade and let them cancel each other out. So I could have, down here at 166, I could have sold a put. I could have, but then that would have been just reiterating this bad decision because you're like hoping that it's going to go up. But, just, playing defense. I could have sold a put. I could have sold a call. I could have sold some calls up here. I mean, it wouldn't have given me as much premium back, but I also could have bought the actual stock down here and said, you know what? If I'm willing to buy the stock up here at 185, well, then maybe I actually buy shares down here at 1163. And then that would have been a $20 move up to 185. Well, then that just canceled some of the loss. Or even I could have bought calls here and said, you know what? I still think maybe at this point I was thinking that this support would hold. Like I still think that there's some support here. I still think that it's going to turn around. So I'm going to buy a call and I'm going to give myself more time. Now it's expensive. Yes, because if you buy calls further out, they're more expensive. Or I could have even just said, you know what? They're cheaper now at this Friday expiration. Now it only cost, $1 to buy calls. Maybe I buy some calls here. I'm a little hesitant to tell myself to do that or to tell you all to do that because then you might lose money on both. And I've seen that happen often. Like we're kind of revenge trading, and so we get into some more contracts here, and we lose money on both, and now you just have a bigger loss. Now I'm down 500K, right? But at the same time, I do want to at least offer it to myself as an option because I could have made money if I had been more defensive, but I was so stuck on just making this one trade work. Like I'm like, balling up my hands. I was so stuck on making that one trade work that I didn't think of all the other options that were available to me. And I could have literally had a positive trade these last 2 days. And that could have canceled out the first one. So we also have to remember that like we're playing, this is a game. It's like in basketball. I'm a basketball girl. I grew up playing basketball. My mom was a coach. My mom had a basketball scholarship, so I was playing with the boys at the YMCA at like 5. But anyway, it's like one of those times like if you get shot on and somebody makes a goal against you and you feel like a little defeated, but then you don't go back on the other side and play defense. Like no. Okay, it happened, the shot was made now, or you maybe you miss a shot And now you're like, dang, I missed that shot. But you got to turn around. Like you can't dwell in that. You got to go back to the other side and get back on defense. So I think that in trading too, we got to remember that same thing. Like, Wednesday, I made the trade. By Thursday morning, it's going down. I've lost some money. But okay, dang, missed that shot. Go back, get on defense. How can I reassess now? And if I had reassessed in this moment, I would have got into the trade maybe lower at a lower price and took a little bit of risk to just see if, hey, maybe I can turn this around. So I could have done that. I think the play that I want to make going into next week, as we just, kind of think through like what the next step is, I do want to own Netflix. I do think that it's going to turn back around. But I also am going to have to do some more charting to see like what's the best price to get into Netflix. Or I want to see it. I call this a confirmation entry, but I'd want it to come into here and turn. Now, a couple things that we check when we're charting is how many times has the stock come to this price, because that means that maybe the next time it won't hold up. And it seems like it's come and visited this price around 180, 11. I'm saying 185, but it's a 1,185. So it's visited here a couple times now. So I maybe do a confirmation entry where if I start seeing it rise and when I start seeing it come up here towards 1200, well, maybe I get into it and ride it up further. And maybe next time I do it with the actual stock instead of options, because another thing here where I could have done this differently or potentially have made money here is if I didn't buy the option contract. If when I came in on Wednesday, I decided, you know what? Instead of spending 300, let me see, I spent 361,000. Instead of spending that on options contracts, let's see how many shares I had could have gotten. Not as many, of course, right? But let's see. That divided by 1162, excuse me, by 1178 at the time I bought. It's 306 contracts. And like let's times that by I got in when it was 1178 and it went up to I think it ended the week at 1182. So it went up $4. So let's clear this out. Let's do 306 times 4. So I could have made $1,200 if I had actually bought the shares instead of doing it with an options contract. And then I wouldn't have been worried about timing. I wouldn't have been worried about like, oh, it's going to expire by Friday. I wouldn't have been worried about moving money around to try to make sure I could buy more shares, right? So this also could have been a an option. No pun intended. I could have just bought the shares. So I hope that this was helpful as you guys are thinking through your trades. Whenever I analyze like have a loss or even a win, I try to analyze it to see what I could learn from it and what I could do better. So the first thing I have to think about is let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to when you took the trade and say, okay, what was happening at that time that made you take this trade? Then I have to ask myself, well, what happened after you took the trade? Like what went wrong? So then that's when I look at, okay, since I took the trade, these things happened up until expiration for options, or maybe it's up until now if you have just stocks. Then I have to come in, and the third question is, well, how could I have done this differently to actually make money? And once I do all those steps, now I can go in and make an action plan for next week. Like, okay, next week, I'm going to be watching Netflix to see if it turns around and starts going positive. If it does, I potentially might buy stocks this time instead of options. Or I might just go trade a different stock. But I do want you all to be careful going into next week because next week is earnings week for a lot of the tech companies. So, as you saw in my Chipotle trade, earnings can go really wrong for you. You think that they're going to be one way and they might beat and go the other way. Netflix actually on the 17th had earnings. They beat expectations, but then still fell. So, in this market and environment, we're not quite sure what's going to happen after earnings. So, be careful. You might even want to just let earnings happen and then make your decisions. Yes, you'll have some FOMO if it does well, like, oh man, I should have took the trade. I was thinking about it. But you also will have JOMO, that joy of missing out, if it does bad and you weren't in it. So, hey. So, I hope this was helpful. Let me look at your comments real quick to see if you have any questions. Do you all have any questions for me? Right. Oh, yes. Yes. Another big learning. Thanks, Michelle. Is like trade the chart. Exactly. Yes. Cash is also a position. It is. This is true. Kathleen says stop loss, the trade and travel way. I also had no stop loss. All of this was just thinking in my head whenever I got a chance to check the market. I should have had a stop loss. Right. Chantel says every since this Chipotle split, it hasn't been the same. AG asks, why don't you use indicators? I actually use formations and candlesticks, and that's my strategy. So I just stick to that. It doesn't need indicators for you to still find out where to buy and sell. Yep, back to journaling each trade. Yeah, Susie D says sometimes I make the most mistakes when I have a financial goal that I'm trying to meet. Yes, and I have that goal in the back of my head. That's true. Sometimes we don't think clearly when we're trying to do that. And so sorry, my allergies have been killing me, so I'm sniffling, but great question. Okay, so someone said we should stay out this week because August 1st has tariffs. I agree. There's going to be some extra volatility this week because the tariff deadline, but I'm not quite, yeah, there's going to be some extra volatility because of tariffs. Sometimes that's helpful as a trader. But if you're trying to have good risk management, then yeah, maybe you just watch this week a little bit because we have a ton of economics reports coming out. We also have a ton of earnings, and then on top of that, we have tariff deadline. So this is a week where you could just kind of stay out and watch. Joy says, would a trailing stop have worked here? And Joy, the answer is no, because immediately I was in the negative. Like the very next day, I was in the negative. So, I mean, I guess yes. Any kind of stop would have probably been good, to tell you the truth. Like if I had just said from the jump, like, you know what, if this goes down, if the premium goes down $2, I'll get out, which is $100,000 of loss on this one. If it goes down $2, I'll get out. Something like that. Or I don't know if my math is quite right there, but I could have done that. And then I would have at least, like I didn't think of any kind of risk management stuff on this. I just in my head was like, I'm about to make a money. And that's not good at all. Uh-huh. If he says, will you wait for Netflix to hit the next buy zone before getting back in, or just watch to see if it turns around before then? I will. The next buy zone is a little further down. We saw on the chart. It's a little further down. And so the correct answer should be yes. If I see it turning around here, though, there was a little bit of support here. No, Terry, that's what got you into this the first place. Yes, I need to wait for the buyer's level. Mm-hmm. Yep. I was about to give an excuse on why I could just like chase it. Mm-mm. Yeah, I'm gonna chart it again. Coming into next week, I'm gonna look at it, chart it again, and then see. Because I also could just switch to a different company, like Meta, CrowdStrike, all these other companies. Meta, I think, has earnings, so we'll think about that one. But Palantir, there's all these other companies that are doing well. So maybe I just switch and look at those. But the correct answer, Iffy, you're right, should be I need to wait for it to come into a buyer's level. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing that. Yep, trade what you see, not what you think is going to happen. Yes, you can't trade on hopium because that's definitely what I was trading on. Ah, thanks, Kathleen. Said, thank you for your transparency and amazing teaching, Terry. You're a blessing. Thank you so much. Phoebe says, was this your first loss in a while? Yeah, Phoebe, is my first big loss in a while. Because like traders, we have losses. It's part of the game. You know, you take a trade, you lose a little bit, you take some more trades, and hopefully the reward is bigger than the losses, right? So you do 3-to-1 reward to risk ratio. You have big rewards and low losses. So it was my first big one in a while. So I think that's why I was kind of like, girl, what were you thinking? But then I also had been taking a break for a little bit. Like I've just been enjoying my life and like I have some options or excuse me, some dividend trades that were sitting. I have some like longer swing trades that were kind of sitting. So like I had surgery earlier this year and I just was like, well, let me have that sit and work and I'll just, have fun. Like I was on a cruise that I enjoyed thoroughly. I was doing cooking classes. I was in London and Turkey and Greece and just on yachts and boats and enjoying my life. Um, so I felt a little bit like, oh, I've been missing out because the stock market's back at all-time highs. Like I need to get back in. No, that was not I I wasn't as focused as I would have liked to be. Hmm. Right. Someone's like, let in my Terry voice, let the candles tell the story. Yep. What does the chart say? Oh, thank you, Gladys. Says, thanks for the transparency, extremely educational. So much gleaning from your growth. Oh, thank you. All right, guys. Well, I'm gonna head on out. I hope you guys have a great week. And I will say be careful this week because we do have a lot of earnings, a lot of Fed stuff, a lot of tariff stuff going on. So if anything, just be mindful. If you haven't had time to keep up with what's happening in the market, don't just jump in and make a trade this week. Like, go look at the charts, get back into it, and then be cautious. And try not to let your emotions rule you. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye, y'all.